G'day again. We are the Chronicle Chamber team, and this is Expand the Phantom podcast. Our website is chroniclechamber.com, and you can contact us via email at chroniclechamber@gmail.com. You can also subscribe to us via the platform you're watching us on, YouTube's, or listening to us, whether that's iTunes, Android apps, or whatever it is that you listen to your podcast through. We are getting towards the double century. This is episode 197. It's our August comics and news, and it's also our September comics and news because it's been a while between drinks on one of these. My name's Dan Fraser, and I'm joined tonight by Stephen East and Jermayn Parker. How are you, boys?
Very well, Dan, and yourself?
Not too bad at all. How's life in your neck of the woods?
Well, we've just been released from lockdown here in regional Victoria, so that's a plus.
Hey, how are you, Jerm?
Yeah, pretty good. I got my first jab of for the vaccination. Everyone who's struggling and in lockdown, our thoughts and prayers are with you. We hope you stay safe and you have some enjoyment listening or watching us as we talk about the latest Phantom news and comics for August and September.
Absolutely. So we have held off to time this exactly as we have because Frew have released a three-parter, and that's what we're going to talk about first is our Frew comics. And then we'll hear from correspondents from at home and around the world on various other comics that have been released over the last 6 to 8 weeks, and then we'll break into the Phantom news. Now, we are on a bit of a promise tonight to try and get this finished inside a certain window. We're not going to talk about that anymore because that just wastes time. Let's go straight into the latest Frews, and we're talking about Frew issues number 180, 1899, 1900, and 1901, the three-part Secret Theatre story. Initial impressions of the just quick initial impression of just the Secret Theatre story, because the Riddle of Grey Malkin, which is the companion piece, we'll talk about separately. So initial overviews of the Secret Theatre. Jerm, let's go with you.
Well, I know Stevens is getting ready off the long run, and I want to give him plenty of time to be able to do that because I agree with a lot that I think he was going to say. I had great hopes for this story. This story was voted quite well in the best of stories for Team Fantomen. I like Carrie Lepinem and Claes Ramefi teaming up. I also like the fact that I got excited when I figured out that it was the third Phantom, that when he ran off to join to become an actor, that was going to be played a part in this. I had great, I was thinking, this is going to be awesome. They're going to tie it all up and sync up with Lee Falk, and listeners know that I like when Team Fantomen and make things tie up nice and neatly with Lee Falk. But I was a little bit disappointed overall. It had potential. The art was good. I think the story was solid enough, but there was a few things that annoyed me, which kind of made me not enjoy the story as much as I would have liked to.
All right. I think I have a bit of a feeling I know what you're talking about there because I had a similar experience. Perhaps I might have enjoyed this one a little more than some of the other Team Fantomen stories, but I'll come to that. Stephen, I'm chomping at the bit now to hear that you're coming in off the long run. Your initial impressions of this story, and then I guess how that may have changed or not changed as you read through the trilogy.
If we're going to go initial, the cover is great. The first, the part one, Man with the Silver Nose, fantastic cover done by Grange Wallace. Last time I saw, it was still for the original artwork is still for sale on his website. And yeah, support your local artists who do a phenomenal job, because there's the old saying that you can't polish a turd, but this is polished really nice because it's a turd of a story. I really don't like the story.
That was a very deceiving long run that suddenly had a bouncer in the last step and a half.
And it's surprising me that it's was voted highly in best stories. I've kind of channeled a bit of a former podcaster in Joe. He never liked the historical stories, and if I'm having to read historical stories like that, then I'm going to jump in his boat because I didn't like it. It irks me on a number of fronts. Thank you. I'm looking at the front and I couldn't get the word out. One thing that's got me thinking: did a historical phantom ever spend any time in the jungle? But every time we get a historical phantom story, he's always in Europe. Now, I'm quite happy to be wrong, but it just seems that every time we get a historical phantom, that he's in Europe. And I see that it's a great place to put him. You can put the phantom in anywhere in Europe, in the anywhere from halfway through the 1500s to present day, and that unleashes all sorts of different stories. I was doing a little bit of maths today, just before coming on here, and from what I could figure out with Google, it would have taken between 3 to 6 months for, if we say that the phantom, that Bengala is on Eastern Africa, they'll get round the Cape, because the Suez Canal wasn't open yet, get round the Cape, and then up to, let's say, England, maybe 4 months, because some of the things I said was 6 months to India. So that's a hell of a long time to be traveling to get to where he's got to go. Then he's got to get back as well. So that's half, 3/4 of the year. How could the legend grow in his natural jungle, in his home, when he's not there? I'm well and surely picked up a ticket for Joe's non-historical story.
Look, that's often a bugbear of mine as well. I think if you added up all of the Team Fantomen stories, because you're right, they do mostly, when they do a historical phantom, and even when they do the modern ones, often base them in Europe. But and certainly that travel time is something I've picked up in the past. But if you look at this as a standalone story, I actually think they've done it well, because of the 3 parts. The first one, they clearly establish a year at the beginning of each trilogy, and it's 1587, 1592, so 5 years later he's back, and then 1601, so that's another 9 years. So there's the travel time covered, but it does mean that he's just back in the jungle for 6 months or so before he's got to turn around again.
And that's right. And usually that wouldn't be at the forefront of my mind, because usually it's a good story and I don't even think about travel times. But I don't like this one. Now, I've just read the 3rd one today, and when you've got to explain all the historical events in its own separate thing and not let it play out naturally in the story, I can go read that in a history book. Why you give me a whole page or page and a half to list it point by point by point? Why aren't you allowing it to unfold naturally in the story? That was a bugbear of mine.
You're talking about page 23, I reckon.
Yeah, that's the one.
Of part 3.
But how could you make that? Like,
I've got no idea how. I'm not the writer.
I don't think you could make it. My question would be, why would you include it? Like that, you didn't need to include any of that in the comic.
Well, I would disagree slightly, and purely because, did you know who Leon, the assassin character, was until she explained it in that page and page and a half, 2 pages? So that kind of put context for the whole story in a sense.
Yeah, that is the arc of the whole thing that's mentioned all the way back in part 1, that there's some mystery as to who she might be. There's no mention of that arc at all in part 2, and that's fine. We sum it up in part 3. It was so mildly relevant to the overall story arc that you could have explained it in 2 panels. You didn't need to take a page and a half. And it was a little bit like I can't remember which book of the Bible where is Elijah begat Abraham and Abraham begat Mary. Whatever.
That's in a few of them.
Yeah,
Genesis might be a good one there for that.
This bit certainly read a bit like that. This happened. So that was a waste of time. That page and a half, I thought. I agree with you on that one for sure, Steve.
Well, I would disagree with you. So I actually thought it was good, in the sense how they waited for the 3rd part before they put the context of why she's revenge against the Queen. So,
and I don't mind that, but why do you have to give the whole history lesson about who Queen Mary was?
So some people don't know who Queen Mary is, and it gives the whole story a bit of context.
Well, they could have done that throughout the story. It was such an integral part to the whole story that they could have put those snippets and allow it to come naturally, rather than give us a whole history lesson in one page.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one. I liked it, but I don't think we'll spend 5 minutes arguing over that one, because I don't think we're going to change each other's mind on that one. So, Stephen, anything else you didn't like about it?
There is, and there was in our discussions. And for those of you who don't know what I do for a living, I'm a teacher, but I work at a Catholic school. I'm actually the head of RE at the Catholic school. One thing that gets up my goat in a lot of stories, now I could be completely wrong here, and I'm happy to be wrong, and there's probably some people who are in the same boat as me and other people who think you're just all hot air and all wearing tinfoil caps, all the rest of it. However, to always see, and in this particular case, the Catholics are always the bad guys and the Protestants are always the good guys. And yes, I know that the history hasn't been great, and that's why historical stories can really do all this fantastic stuff. These wars, these problems, this rich history, whether it be positive or negative, but it just seems to always be on the negatives.
I think just the fact that the Phantom so often is against the people on the side of the Catholic Church. I mean, that sets them up as the bad guys, doesn't it?
It always does. And
it does feel like, I'm with you, I'm not sure the numbers on that. I'd be fascinated if anyone wanted to do the research on stories involving the Catholic Church and whether they were with the Phantom or for the Phantom. But my hunch would be, Steve, agree with you, that for the most part, Phantom helps fight against the forces of the Catholic Church in whatever guise they are.
Yeah.
And there was a line, I don't know if it was in the first or second thing, about the doctrine or the dogmas or something, and it was about the earth being flat and all that sort of stuff. It seemed so against what the Phantom would do, respecting people's beliefs, and realised that these guys had been corrupt. That's probably the word I was looking for before. There was a lot of corruption going on. But also during this time, like I said, in the 1500s, 1600s, you also had movements like the Franciscans and what have you, who could see the corruption that was going on and were working against it. And I could really see the Phantom aligning with those sort of guys and having a good news story. But to always see the negative, it's irksome. And as a kid, when I read a Phantom comic, you read it from your own background. And well, I've just said what my background is, and whether you think that's relevant or not. But whenever you read anything, you've always got what you are coming.
You come from your bias.
Bring what you have to to what you read. It's the life in front of the text, if you like.
You raise a good point, and I agree with you when it comes to the recent history stories. If you read some of the previous history stories, like there was The Ring, which was when I think it was the fourth Phantom actually loses the skull ring. There's a couple of scenes in there where he actually talks about how, hey, where he says along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing, I am not a part of this war. I don't take sides. There's evil on both sides. And you see where he actually removes himself when there's a battle. And sure, why there is that. But I agree with you that in his later stories, he has the Phantom heavily swinging towards the Protestants, where earlier on, he was strictly neutral.
It's a fine line that we've talked about Paul Mason being able to balance with regard to the Vietnam stories as well. Like when there's a war, whose side is the Phantom on?
We'll park that discussion and we'll move on, because the other issues I have with this story, and again, if you're on YouTube, I will bring it up. The fact, like I said, I liked how we see the third Phantom, and I want to point out the positives, and I like how we have that internal struggle between father and son, son wanting to go into the actorship. I liked how we got to see that again. I kind of wish maybe we got a little bit more about that rather than...
It was sorry, I'll let you go. I've got words to say about that.
The other thing that I really did not like is on page 24, it was and 25 of part 3, issue 1901, is just how easily the Phantom was getting beaten by.
I told you this. We polished a turd with that great cover.
In part 3, the Phantom is nothing but a bumbling idiot who actually plays no part in defeating the assassin and actually saving the day. He's just
he does tackle her to her death. Like if it wasn't,
it wasn't. They're wrestling and then she bumped her head and she's dead. Like
you also take into account the actions of the boy who goes on to become the third Phantom. That's also, because it's a dual Phantom story in a way. It's a story of Chris Walker the actor who is finding that he's compelled into this service. And I agree. I think a little bit more could have been made of that because it was a good opportunity, and I'd like to have explored that more. But I understand when I look back at it now. I understand where you're coming from, but I must say I didn't have that impression myself when I read it the first time.
I also didn't like the way that he's putting down the actors. Like in the first couple of parts, he's there with Will and doing all, seems all very friendly and all this sort of stuff. Now, granted, it could be like, as in Dudley says in his message to the publisher, could be just a father, angry, disappointed that his son's not doing what he wanted to do. It's some sort of family argument, and he says things that he doesn't mean to say. But to call him in front of all the other actors, life in the theatre is for low-life rabble. It's
But it was.
I kind of think that goes against what he. I can't remember. I don't know what he says in other stories. Like, granted, he doesn't want Chris to go into the theatre. He wants him to become the third Phantom, of course, and so he's probably angry and disappointed. But it just seems unphantom-like to put the actors and stuff down.
But you got to remember that actors in those days were treated like that.
It's supposed to be better than that.
Okay, so this is...
But it makes it more interesting if I do...
Sunday story number 84, The Wig. We've got here where you've got the second Phantom went backstage like a tornado. Who is that man? He says, "Take off that blasted wig. You're coming back to the jungle where you belong with me." So he's definitely
that's all good.
Hang on, where
there's nothing against the actor in that.
You run away from school to find you playing a girl's part, a play actor, and then Lee Falk explains in those days actors were not highly thought of. There's nothing lower than that, like a vagabond. And then Chris says, "I'm proud to be an actor." And he says, "You are my son. You will inherit the skull throne. Follow my footsteps. I do not want to be the father. Let the line end with you." He walks away. So there's definitely
okay.
I always thought that scene was a bit dramatic, really, when you consider that there's literally the second Phantom trying to pass on to the third. Like, there's not a huge tradition so far. Let the line die with you. It's a line of two so far. That's just two dots, not a line.
And then the second Phantom says, "We no longer have a son." I understand that, it's pretty harsh, but if you want to take it, they've actually kind of followed what Lee Falk himself has set up in this story, which, again, this is the Sunday story number 84, which was back in the 70s, I believe it was.
And that The Wig is one of my favourite stories. I actually am lucky enough to own one of the pages of the original art from that one. And I sought after it because it was such a favourite story of mine. I was really keen on getting a panel with William Shakespeare in it, actually. But unfortunately, someone else had already picked that one up. I was very happy with the page I got nonetheless. But my point is that the fact that William Shakespeare was brought into the Phantom history by Lee Falk there has provided what's turned out to be, I think, a really interesting inside or way in for Klaus Ramathy when he wrote this, because all of the stuff we've talked about aside, I think that the building up of that Shakespeare element could have been. Of course, everything can be done better in hindsight, and we're all experts, from this side of the typewriter screen. But I really liked the way that he took Shakespeare to Venice, because, as Dudley points out, Shakespeare loved Venice and wrote into a couple of his plays, and he would have really enjoyed going there. That element of part two, I've got some concerns with in terms of the plot, but I'll talk about that later. But also bringing in the sonnets and the Dark Lady in particular. So tying the Dark Lady of Leonore to Shakespeare, and the way that they've done that, and how that inserts in Shakespeare's actual history, because he did write a bunch of sonnets that it featured a Dark Lady, and there's all this conjecture in English classes and university tutorials all over the world who study literature as to who's the Dark Lady and how are these sonnets different from the Fair Boy sonnets, and there's all these different that I thought typing into that element was exciting for me, and I'm an English nerd, and I understand that that's a very small market, but it was still done with accuracy, which makes me think, and I'll segue here back to that historical story stuff, which makes me think that all of that historical stuff that Klaus puts in his stories is 100% accurate. He's done his research and he knows that A, B, C, D happened, and he weaves the Phantom story in amongst that, you know, in a way that in the 3-part arc, the Queen of England is kidnapped but then saved, and makes sense why she would have been. The fact that she was saved by the Phantom means that it's not recorded in history, so it still fits. I think sometimes he brings every level of his intricate detail into his historical stories where you don't necessarily need it for a comic book. But that said, as I say, the Shakespeare stuff I really enjoyed. It's probably editorial oversight that has probably been a bit of a downer in this one, rather than any. Certainly, Lepinen, we haven't talked about his art, but it's magnificent throughout. And I think that lots of the writing is good, but the editorial, and a good example of this might be in the first issue called Men with the Silver Nose. Now, at what point did you guys realise that Orlando was the man with the silver nose? When in the story did that come evident for you? By my reckoning, the first time that anyone mentions that Orlando has a silver nose is on page 23, the one that we've had a crack at. Issue 99, 1899 on page 23 is the first time that anyone mentions that he's got a silver nose. And then on page 24, so about halfway down on page 23, if you want to bring that up on the screen for us later, Jim, I'd recognise that silver nose anywhere. I think that's the first time it's mentioned on page 23. And then on page 24, he gets it punched off his face. And that's it. That's the only 2 mentions of it. So an editor, I would have thought, should have picked up on that and gone, hey, hang on, Klaus, if this is called The Men with the Silver Nose, and that's actually an interesting plot point at the end, let's have some mention of it earlier in the piece as well. I thought that. But
would that matter if the comic wasn't in black and white?
Oh, maybe, but at least then you'd think it should be explained. Why would you have this random weird character in the first 2 or 3 pages that has just apparently got a silver nose?
Yeah.
Like some sort of.
I reckon we wrap up this story. Anyone got any final points, and we'll move on to the Grey Malakin.
Well, I do. Hang on.
Yeah.
I also really liked the character of Leon Leonor. I thought that was cleverly done, and particularly the payoff of the assassin being a woman who had trained as a man. And I take your point, Stephen. I'm sure the Jesuits would be particularly unhappy with their portrayal here. But training as a Jesuit assassin, apparently. Yeah, I thought the payoff of that was really good. That character.
She was
I did have to laugh at that, and I was thinking, am I angry about that? And well, you think about whenever you think kung fu movies and stuff, they're always monks and that sort of stuff. So why can't there be some sort of kung fu priests? That's all right, but can't they be the good guys? That's all I ask.
All right. Well,
good guys for once. That'd be nice.
As Jim says, we should also talk about the Grey Malkin, which is the 3-part. The first 3 parts of 8 we're promised in the first issue, in the first story. So it says that it's an 8-part story. We've got the first 3 parts. Again, I'll open it the same way. First impressions, guys. Jim, we'll start with you this time.
I don't know. I'm very much undecided on this so far.
All right, that's a quick overview. We'll come back to pros and cons. Stephen.
I'm enjoying this one, and it's back in the jungle with a bit of Maritown or Morristown. I think that's where they start off, and then into the jungle. We've got a couple of. It's not setting the world on fire. It's just a fun little story. It's like the old school adventure, the blunderbuss hunter who's trying to have things his way, and he's going to cause a big, big old stuff up maybe, because he's blundering. He wants to be in charge, but then the family comes and takes charge, and it's a bit rough. I'm just enjoying it. It's just a fun little story to put at the end of the comic, and you got all the type of language that it's supposed to be suited to the mood of the piece, to the era of the piece, and the way it's written. So I don't mind the language. I think it's just fun. It's just a bit silly, and I'm enjoying it.
Right.
Is it gaslight though?
Well, is that your problem with it, Jim? Because I actually agree with quite a lot of what Stephen said, and I saw you nodding from time to time too. So there must be some elements.
I understand, it is a fun story, and I like reading a story where it's not trying, and I hope I don't offend the creators in this, but it's not itself too serious. It is fun. It's kind of taking the mickey out of everyone involved.
Except the Phantom. The Phantom's done with respect. The Phantom is the Phantom, and he's good.
Yeah. I question whether it is gaslighting. And now I'm not a fan of the gaslight genre. But is there enough Gaslight for it to be called Phantom by Gaslight? But it's fun. I'll grant you that. I get a little bit over these mythical, magical, lost tribes or lost animals. And now, if it turned out to be like bogus, like I could see that and I could understand that because, you know, back in that era in the 1800s or 1900s, there was a lot of mysteriousness about the jungle, and it turns out to be something not so funky. But the fact that we actually see the Grey Malakin in issue 2 and we see a lot of it in issue 3, I'm kind of like, to me, I don't know. I'm on the fence about this. I'm not going to make a judgment until I read all 8 parts, but at the moment, I'm not sold.
Well, it's interesting because I liked it for almost everything that you just said. To be honest, and you're absolutely right. We're at chapter 3 of 8, so we're less than halfway through the story, and we do need to judge it in the same way that we've just talked about the Secret Theatre as a 3-part total story. It would be ideal to talk about this as an 8-part total story, but we've got 3 parts so far. And as I say, I liked it for almost all of the reasons that you just said. I wasn't critical of, this doesn't feel like a Gaslight story. I did think, if this didn't have Phantom by Gaslight at the top, would it make any difference? And the answer is no. It's just a good, solid 19th, 18th century, 18th or 19th generation Phantom. But I liked all the rest of it. Like it's set in 1892. That is when people were actually, white people were actually exploring the jungle for the first time and discovering animals that were, this is when they were looking for the Tasmanian tiger. It's the right era for that sort of stuff. So
I understand that, but I'm a little bit over. And Lee Falk did it to death. A lot of other Phantom creators have done it to death as well. Is like, lost tribes and lost, bogus animals and funky animals and stuff. I'm just like, another one of these type of stories. I'm just not completely sold yet.
Well, see, I was like, oh, good, another one of these type of stories. So
I'm looking forward to the Grey Malkin coming to Eden. Eden's getting a new resident.
Yeah, you would think so.
To go with the unicorn and the dodo and everything
Steggy.
else.
Don't forget Steggy.
And his and hers.
His and hers.
Well, I don't think Grey Malkin is anywhere near as outlandish as those characters. See, when you said supernatural and that sort of stuff, Jerm, it's not.
It's a rare animal.
Yeah, it's a unique rare animal. That's all there is to it. So, unless we find out otherwise in future stories. So,
one thing I do like about how they've done it is they've written and drawn it well that each part ends not on a cliffhanger all the time, but it ends on a nice
lead into the next one. It finishes this part and then leads into the next.
Yeah. So I think they've done that well, and I think they've done it better than the first Gaslight series. But they just there seems to be a little bit more harmonious spirit between the way they're collaborating between each other. So I think they're doing quite well at that.
I think the writing is a lot tighter. I think it's really well structured, like you've said. I did call them cliffhangers in my notes, but I know they're not literally, Willie Survive type things, but it is well paced. It's really well structured. And I think this writing is a lot tighter. I think the artwork's a lot tighter than the original Gaslight stuff too. I think that Jason's style in this series is less. It seems less rushed. I'm sure he does it in just as quick a time because he's that talented an artist. But it feels like tighter art that helps that tighter story come together, I think. Well, were you disappointed in the very first issue, the first part of it, Grey Malkin Part 1 in 1899, that the Phantom was only in one panel?
No.
This is what I agree with you, Steve. I think that the creators are paying great respect to the Phantom there, because I think that the way that the Phantom emerges in the first issue, just seen in the shadows once watching from the trees, but then suddenly has, written on the inside of your tent and taken your guns. And that's the Phantom that I think I think this is a really, really good story. I think it's holding a lot of promise and it's fun, but it's also, I think it hits a lot of Phantom tropes, which was one of the things that we discussed last time. So it works on a lot of levels for me.
And he's also doing the hiding in plain sight as Mr. Walker. When the fellow goes to try and contact him and bang, and puts the little lever down to get, I already know he's already here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we should move on because we're probably 30 minutes through the podcast already and only on the 3 comics, which is pretty typical for us. We're going to talk about the other the other Frew release that came out over the last couple of months. And it's one that I think surprised a lot of us when it landed in, certainly subscribers, it surprised us when it landed in our mailboxes. And I can only imagine the same when people went back to newsagents and found they were sitting on shelves. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about Kid Phantom because my son Angus has already done a review and it's... All right, here we are now looking at Kid Phantom number 10 and I'm joined by Angus. How are you, buddy?
Good.
All right, tell us about this comic book.
So this is the number 10 Kid Phantom book that came in the mail.
How did you feel when it came in the mail?
I was very surprised because I thought it had finished.
Yeah.
But it's very good.
What makes it good?
Oh, just the fact that like this is cool because it's just very good. So.
Do you mean the cover or the story or both?
Both.
Okay.
I like how he's sticking up for his friend, and I also like all the little things around the books, like
graffiti and stuff in that one.
Oh well, graffiti but there's bits where here in all the little posters.
Yeah. Do you know what they mean?
Some of them.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like how they're on a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like he's got them about him, newspapers about himself, because it says goggle-eyed pirates attack hijack trucks.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is throughout the story how there's all the little posters in the background, you like those?
Yeah, I like searching for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like trying to find them. Like I look very carefully on each page.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's those. What about the story itself?
Oh, I very much like the story because there's really funny. I like how he figures out who the scientist is like really quickly.
Yeah, because the scientist was the character from number 9, I guess, was it, or number 8?
The one before it.
Yeah.
So number 9.
Yep.
Yeah, and like this bit's funny, where he's like, we have to go after him, find out where he lives, investigate. Well, actually, I already have. I followed him back to his home, and Garen just never have I been less surprised. That bit's really funny.
Yeah, righto.
Yeah, and I like how willingly Garen goes along with that. Like, yeah, we'll go beat up a bad guy tonight.
Yeah, okay. Just ready to go.
Just like, oh yeah, sure, just beat him up. I don't care. Why would I care? Yeah. Oh, and this bit's really funny where he's just like, haven't you heard? I'm the ghost that looks really silent. Like, boom, my incorrect and heavy-footed friend. Yeah.
All right, cool. And so the story keeps going. Did you like?
Oh yeah, it goes with Miriam. And
no, in terms of like, this is a pretty cool page. You've just turned over there to page 16 and 17.
Yeah.
What's cool about that page?
Oh well, it's very cool because it's got like all the bad guys he's ever faced. Like it's got that and the 2 like coyotes. What are they? Well, wolves. Like from when he got Diablo.
Yep.
It's got Captain Cleaver. It's got him. He's the guy who beat up Duran. Fast Shot Farley, the Rat King. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's the sword from the pirates with Captain Cleaver.
Oh, of course.
The Count.
Yes.
Who wouldn't like
So
me?
all of the bad guys from all of the previous episodes.
Yeah, and they're not even necessarily his because that's Diablo's nemesis. That's basically anyone mean he's ever fought.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I like this bit's a bit satisfying how it's satisfying how he the Phantom's going, but Kit manages to fight him off and realizes it's the scientist, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
It is a bit of a shame, though, with Murian, how it's ending with Meanwhile in Mexico. To be continued. Like, if this is the last book.
Yeah, and it does say that number 10 is the last book.
Even here on the milk it says goodbye.
Yeah, right on the cover it does say goodbye. Well picked up. So, this issue, you liked this issue because it wrapped up the scientists and it brought all the big bad guys together.
Yeah.
Thinking about the whole 10 issues now, the whole 10 stories of Kid Phantom. Are you satisfied that it's all wrapped up nice and neat?
I would very much like it to keep going because we haven't even figured out about the Rat King yet.
Yeah, true. Okay.
The Rat King, his face is literally a rat. It's not a mask, it's a rat.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to figure out how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like Captain Cleaver, she dived into the ocean and was never seen, but we know she didn't die because Garan said.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's still a bunch of stories they could tell, hey?
Yeah. And this guy got handed to the police, but he's a criminal expert. He might get out or something.
Yep.
Or these guys might even be hunting Diablo because they want...
The other coyotes, yeah, for sure. Okay. All right, so it's a shame you reckon that Kid Phantom's finished?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, I know you were quite surprised before when I reminded you it was the last one.
Yeah, because it said in the book...
Disappointed.
It says in the book before, last issue.
Yeah.
And I really don't want it to be the last issue.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, anything else you'd like to say about Kid Phantom?
I like how he fights off all the bad guys, like, just bang, 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 and he's already gone. It took him way longer, but you can tell he's grown and matured because Captain Cleaver was a very hard fight. But when he beat her by going, dum dum, she's gone. Yeah. Yeah. And they get all blown away once they've defeated him.
Yeah, very quickly. So I noticed when I went to get you from your room to come down and film this review that you were reading an old Christmas special of The Phantom. Has this suddenly made you want to read other episodes of The Phantom?
Yeah, some. Yeah. I have got like 3 of my own actual Phantom comics, maybe 4, but Kid Phantom is mainly all the Phantom books I've got because you won't let me take them out.
You can't. Well, I've got to get you reading copies for the other ones, don't I?
Yeah.
All right. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you very much, Gus. I've really enjoyed your contributions to the podcast with Kid Phantom, reviewing it the whole way through. And we might have to get you to start reviewing some other books now that Kid Phantom's wrapped up, maybe some of the regular series. All right, buddy. Well, thank you very much. And what do we always say at the end of the podcast?
Happy Phantoming.
Yeah, very good.
Forgot for a second.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
What were you guys' thoughts?
It was fun. It was fun. I enjoyed the Easter eggs. You know, that was good. I liked how it was. You can tell this was not the way it was originally intended to wrap up the series, but I liked how it did wrap up the series.
It did it in a hurry without feeling rushed.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good description.
But overall, it was fun. We've talked about it before, but it's a bit sad that it's happened, that it's ended. But you can't complain. I liked the letter at the end. It felt wrapped up nicely.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it's wrapped it up nicely, but still with the opportunity to go on if that possibility ever rears its wonderfully shaped head.
Yeah,
it would be great to see it go.
Gus actually rattles through a few different ways that they could extend it if they wanted to, because he's pretty sad that it's all over as well. Is there any particular Easter eggs that you'd like to point out that you feel that was a nice one?
The best one for me is the one on page 8. I'll try and zoom it up where my fingers is. where you see the young defenders of the earth. For me, that was
posters above the lockers.
Our new Patreon section for this month when Dan does it. There is a picture of what young Flash Gordon was going to look like as well. So we've been given that by Paul Mason, who's given us permission to put it up on our Patreon.
Oh,
so
cool. There's barely a page without an Easter egg as you flick through. Steve, do you have anyone that you'd like to particularly highlight?
Like you said, on every page there's one that you just got to chuckle or smile at. But I think the one on page 1, or page 3, I should say, the first page of the actual comic, Glen Ford Junior High School, of course, we know who Glen Ford is, but the Quiambulant Expirovit, I thought, I reckon I know what that's going to mean. And yeah, it's Ghost Who Walks, written in Latin and established 1936. I thought that was brilliant. Yeah. I like that. And the Jim Shepard for class president, that's just...
Yeah, that's really cool. I'll also give a shout out to I'm sure I'm going to bet that this is Paul's favourite Easter egg, and that'd be the one on page 4. The teacher there 100% is Amanda, his partner. So and drawn really well. So thank you very much, Paul, for all of the work that you've put into Kid Fandoms. I think they've been magnificent. Andrew's writing since he's been involved has really helped shape it as well. And to see Glenn Ford actually put a few words up on Facebook earlier this week in recognition with Kid Fandom 10 having wrapped up and acknowledging all the hard work that had gone into the scenes behind it and sort of paying tribute to the series himself.
Yep, exactly.
Just seeing something else which I didn't really notice or didn't click when I first read it. Page 5, when he's getting rid of the bully, and there's a skull mark that's kind of flown off in amongst all the stars and stuff. So even without, punching the dude and leaving the skull mark, there's still the skull mark. He's done the Phantom thing and being rough on Roughnecks and left him with the skull mark. Even, didn't land on his face, but the skull mark is still incorporated into the art.
Should have he added an old jungle saying, saying that's the one trope that we said that should be in every Phantom story is an old jungle saying. So
they could have been new jungle sayings for Kid Phantom.
Yeah.
All right.
What did you guys think? Yeah, Miran. Like for me, I reckon we just talk about the last panel. Yeah. That's the Black Panther, not the Black Panther. That's Panther, which is the one that we're seeing in Giant Size. Does that mean that we're going to be seeing more of Miriam in Giant Size? You reckon?
It's the only hope. Do you want to see Miriam in Giant Size?
I enjoy the art. I'll just leave it at that.
It's an interesting one because you're right. That seems to be the only avenue left for Miriam, if that's a series that they want to continue. And it says right at the last words are to be continued. So, but it wouldn't seem to fit in Giant Size. Giant Size is for like old blokes who are older than us trying to relive their or recapture the nostalgia of comics past. And yet Miriam is like a brand new comic that's been started in a kid's book. They would seem so far removed from each other. It would seem like an odd way to keep that story going.
It makes sense because there's the crossover with the Panther, but I don't understand it myself. I kind of lost interest in her when they changed the fact that she's not wearing a Phantom uniform.
Yeah.
It's when I kind of lost interest in the series.
Because it's really loose, isn't it? It's in the Phantom universe, but it has no Phantom characters it's trying to establish a whole new Phantom character, and it's just there's no need for it because there's already so many good Phantom characters that could be explored without needing to bring in a Zuffy, which is all she seems to be.
Well, I would have been okay with it if she kept the Phantom uniform.
Well, she didn't, and it'd seem unlikely that we're going to hear much from her. And watch this space, I suppose. But I find it hard to see how they would. So those are all of the comics that have been released in Australia over the last little while. Let's head overseas. We're going to hear from Mikael now, who is going to review the latest Fantomen stories for us. Thank you very much, Mikael.
Welcome back for another Fantomen review with me, Mikael, from Sweden. I'm gonna go through one Fantomen comic. It's double issue 1819 of 2021. It has a pretty cool cover by Lyck, and it's a crazy full 4 Phantom stories packed in this double issue. The main story is Gränsfloden, the border river, by Claes Ramerti and Kari Leppänen. The Rhodian military is seen on the Bengala side of the border doing some kind of mining. I don't want to spoil the story, but let me say that I thought this concept was quite smart and cool. And then there's no less than 3 classic stories. We have the Team Fantomen story Children of the Fog, but now colored. It was first released in 86 in Sweden and 1988 in Australia in issue 895 of Frew. It's written by Di Darrell and art by George Bess. This is a bit mysterious about a ship with only children showing up at the Moray shore. I enjoyed this so much. This is how I want my 80 stories to be, and to see it with this amazing coloring. There's a lot of time and effort doing these colorings and checking them, and it really shows here. It's great. And we have 2 Falk McCoy stories. The Toadman and let's see here. The Shoplifters. And both are in black and white. And in my opinion, The Toadman I have read several times, and the humor is on point, well thought of plot, and a bit of exciting when the Phantom infiltrates the bad guys. The Shoplifters, on the other hand, is not very good. Everyone in this story is incredibly stupid and can't imagine what the culprits are doing, and even though it makes perfect sense, even Diana starts believing she imagined it instead of seeing the obvious. It infuriates me to read this classic story. Except for all these 4 stories, there's also an editorial piece of the Phantom audio stories, or here, and that's all the audio stories that have been published in Sweden with the Phantom, and pretty fun read. So all in all, very good content, and then we get the information about the next issue. It's 2 newspaper stories. It's the Free Avarian Front and the Ghost Wall that we will see in the next issue. That's all from me. Thank you. Oh, look at that. My beautiful game is on the ad in the back. Great. See you next time. Happy Phantoming.
All right, good on you, Mikael. Thank you so much. Appreciate your input as always. And as we say every time, if you are from a country that has got comics being published and we're not talking about them on the podcast, please get in touch with us, because we'd love to hear people from South America or Central Europe or wherever current comics are being produced. And let the rest of the world know about what's going on in your country. Anyway, if we go to international Phantom Comics, and the dailies and the Sundays are still being published internationally via Comic Kingdom website and hopefully in your local newspaper. We have started talking about these a lot more in our Comics and News podcasts lately, and it's been well received. So we're going to continue with the tradition that we've recently established. We're going to start with the Sunday story. Jeff Weigel and Tony DePaul, of course. The story The Visitor, about 6 or 8 more panels since last time we spoke about it. Steve, what are your thoughts on the way the story's going?
I don't mind the story. I don't mind this visitor character. I'm keen to see where he goes. Like in the last couple of weeks, we have got a bit more information about him. They think they might have been there right when the first Phantom took the oath, or all that sort of stuff. Well, it's not really info. It's kind of like wonderings, yeah. And now in today's Sunday, he's actually there in the cave with him. So I'm keen to see where it's going next. So I don't mind that aspect of the story. When the story first started and there was this change of costumes over the years, I thought, oh, this is interesting. I'll see how this goes. as the weeks have progressed, I'm not a fan. I don't like it. I always like the fact that the Phantom looked like the Phantom with some very minor adjustments throughout the years. That might be the boot, the style of the boots, and the weapons, of course. But the suit and those sort of things look the same. Now I realise that if we're to be realistic, of course the cowl would be a bit more saggy around there. It wouldn't be tight. It wouldn't be the lycra or whatever material we think that it's made out of now. So realistically, yes, you can see the differences in the suit. But I like the suit always being the skin tight, traditional, what we've always seen. So when it started, I thought this could be interesting. I don't know where I sit. I wish they didn't muck around with the suit.
So what about the poster that's obviously come from this story? And you can read about the origins of the poster on our website.
I see that it's sold out, and I didn't buy one. Maybe I'll get one later, but it's not. I think it's well done, and I think it looks great, but it's not something that I've really. Yeah, I'm in two minds because I like Jeff Weigel's art. I like the way it looks, but I just don't like the concept of the suit changing.
So, what about you, Dan? Do you like the actual suit change?
Oh, I'm a bit the same as Steve, but less so, I suppose. I really liked it when it was introduced in the costume chamber or the chamber of costumes or whatever it was called, and there was the mannequins around. And as Jeff's explained it in his Facebook post, that he thought, well, this is going to look boring if I have 21 of the same costume, and it would.
Well, it makes sense that, yeah.
Yeah, so he asked Tony DePaul, do you mind if I mix it up a little bit and age appropriate them or era appropriate the costumes? Tony said, go for it. And so this is what we've got. And then the natural flow over, of course, is there's going to be those costumes throughout these sorts of historical or backstories that chronicle stories that the fandom tells. So I liked it in the chamber. I liked it less in the story once you actually see fandoms getting around in that garb. And it's probably one that I have not, an element that I have not enjoyed when Team Fantomen artists have done it, and they have in the past to various degrees. But Jeff seems to have really gone with it. In terms of the poster, and we're going to do a bit more of a deep dive on the poster later, or maybe we won't have to now, but in terms of the poster, I like the poster. And I did get a copy of it, and I'm sure that the sold out button just means that they need to go and print more, and that they will. And so you'll be able to get your copy, Steve. But if that was, we've been talking about a Fandom Bible, my stipulation on liking it, I suppose, would be that as long as other artists then follow that and go, okay, well, that's the third artist, the third Phantom, and that's what he looks like, or the fifth Phantom with the weird looking beret that I'm not sold on yet, but if everyone doesn't, and that's just what the fifth Phantom did, then so be it. I'm with you, Steve, because traditionally I like my Phantoms to all look the same, but realistically I can understand how they're close enough that generations of people would still think they're the same man, so it's not foreign to or breaking Phantom stories or old jungle sayings for that matter. But yeah, I'm probably liking it more than I'm not. But it's just weird to see it in a Sunday or a daily because I wonder if it's just because we're not used to it. Like if we grew up with it, or if we had this conversation in 5-10 years' time, it wouldn't bother us. But because it's so new, I reckon that might be the reason why some hardcore fans are struggling with it a bit more than. And you're not the only ones as well. There's other ones. I've read some comments from some more vocal fans like Ivan and some others as well who have voiced their displeasure as well. What about you?
I'm on the fence.
We all are this time.
Yeah, for very.
I'm not. I said that.
It makes sense. For everything that you've said, it makes sense and all that. It's just. I'm just not used to it yet. If Jeff does this for and Mike does it, and then say, we're already seeing it in the what do you call it, in the Phantom by Gaslight. There's seams in the costume, and stuff like that as well. So if if we see it more regularly, I think it will just become a natural progression and it will become law. But if we never see it again, it's just a unique oddity.
Well, maybe we should have added that to the poll, the fact that the costume never changes. It's exactly the same forever and a day, 400 years. The first one looks exactly like the last one. Anyway, it must be coming to an end soon, this story, I would have thought. Actually, every week for the last probably 3, I've thought, oh, well, next week will be the last one and they'll wrap this up. It's eking on a little bit. It will be interesting to see how it comes together as a printed full story in a comic book. Well, although what's happened today has opened up a potential for a lot more storyline, hasn't it?
I love today's panel, especially where he's locked up Devil and they're piecing it together, and it's like he's here, he's been in here all evening. It's like, well, what's going to happen now? It's brilliant writing. I just hope.
Are they going to talk? I want to hear him.
I hope the payoff is worth.
Communicate with them.
I hope what the payoff that is going to come is worth what we're going to see. And we've got to remember, Tony DePaul, in his words that we have shared in this podcast before, has said that he expects some fans not to like this story.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's fair because there's lots of fans who don't like the Hers and the Steggy stories. So, there's
surely it can't be as bad as that.
All right, the daily that we're in the midst of, and will be for quite some time to come, by the sense of what Tony said, that this is, he thinks, could end up being the longest fandom story. We do need to make an amendment or an acknowledgement that I stuffed up in our last Comics and News. Steve couldn't join us, but he did send some notes in about the story. And I read most of those notes when we were actually discussing the daily last time. And in his notes, Steve acknowledged, or he mentioned, that we've got to remember that Old Man Moz is just telling this story, and we don't know, whether it's actually happening or not. And it turns out that was a really important thing that I should have said, Steve. And I think
you could have not said any of the other stuff. That one.
So I think that next time you just need to reprioritize your life, get on the podcast more, prioritize getting here so you can actually say it for yourself, because that's turned out to be quite observant and quite prescient of you to see that.
Well, thank you, Dan. Your apology is accepted, and I hope everyone's looking forward to episode 200, where this kind of actually comes up. Or was it mentioned in the Bite Size podcast the other day?
Yes, it was. Right. We did that because, and if you haven't listened to episode 196A, please do. It's part of the recording for episode 200, which has already been recorded and waiting for us to churn through the next couple of podcasts so we can release that. Tony talks a lot about this story. He talks about future Sunday stories, future stories, and then we kind of combined it all into a 15-minute soundbite for people to talk about, for people to listen, because he actually talks about how this story is going to feature. We're going to see how the 21st Phantom dies, which is quite exciting. I missed this, so well done, Steve. I missed this panel, and talking to some others on the podcast that we recorded as well, I wasn't the only one who missed it.
And yeah, so for those of you looking at the screen, you'll see that, and if you're not listening to it, or if you're not watching us on the screen and just listening to us, in the panel, what day was it?
The 30th of June.
30th of June. So panel 1, we've got the Phantom lounging down with Old Man Moz under a tree by the campfire, and what's important is the border of that cell, or that image is straight. It's a straight rectangular border. The next one, as Old Moz is telling the story, has got the jagged edges of the rectangle. So, which often denotes either a dream or a story or something. Usually in whenever I've read a comic, that's what it symbolizes. Yeah. So,
and then the other clue was it's the same panel as this one, which was the 28th of June. But it's on a different angle. So that was the other visual clue that they gave. But well done, Steve. So have you got?
It is pretty subtle, I would say, and it would be easy to miss that panel change. So there'll be lots of, and I didn't see it the first time. I knew about it after Steve had mentioned it in the chat, but then of course didn't say it in the podcast. Yeah, it might have been worth making that a little bit more obvious, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Adds to a little bit of, is he or isn't he? Adds a bit of mystery. But
yeah, no. It does. It does for you who picked it up, but for all of us who didn't pick it up, we've missed what's going to turn out to be a pretty important part. So anyway, maybe I'm just trying to make excuses for my own lack of observation.
But we'll go into, so again on YouTube I'm bringing up the panels that has appeared since the last podcast, which is where he's talked to Savannah. I'll just flick through these.
Fair to say this story of Old Man Moz's is really, really detailed. He
knows a lot of detail.
He's capturing every blow, every thought, every duck and dive. So it's a ripper of a story. The action in this escape from Graveline's sequence is just amazing.
Yeah.
The way I'd see it is the Phantom's hearing the story, and he's kind of filling in the blanks as to, when you hear a story, you hear it with your own background. You know what you would do in that situation.
Yeah.
Moz is giving the outline. He's forming it in his head.
Yeah, fair enough.
But if you go back a couple of there, Germ, I remember reading something on Tony's blog. Keep going, please. Yeah, that one. He gave special mention to Mike in this panel in particular with the way that he's drawn Savannah, the way that, just the whole body. He was giving big props to Mike Manley and his artwork on this particular scene. So
that is a really dynamic picture of Savannah, isn't it? We're on the 18th of August, and but tell you what, for someone who's been in prison for a long time, just sitting in a cell, she is ready to go, looking buff and not dropping half a pace behind the very fit Phantom.
Well, revenge can give you superhuman powers sometimes, and through the whole thing, he's trying to calm her down. You don't shoot him. You got the flamethrower or the rocket launcher or whatever. Just calm down.
Yeah.
We're not killing anybody if we can help it. This one. Yeah, it just steals a Tommy gun off her.
Yeah.
The action's good. I also like how the Phantom's doing the little one-liners, the commentary during the action, and it's what we grew up on in the 80s and the 90s before the action movies and stuff like that. And I used to like that. I used to just like laughing and getting a chuckle out of those little one-liners with Arnie and
those were a Leaf Hawk stable all the way back, weren't they? So it's part of the Phantom writing that Tony DePaul has continued really, really well and brought his own slant to it.
Laughing in the face of danger. So look, it's interesting to see how we're knowing what we know about how this story is going to portray the Phantom's death. It's interesting how we're going to get there,
because we don't know that yet.
Yeah. I'm curious on where we're going from here and how, I guess, are we going to have like one adventure of breaking out of Gravelands and then there's going to be another adventure in the jungle or how is he going to do it? What has he got in mind?
Because he's always said that the Phantom's lost. Like wherever he dies, he's lost. People can't find him, and so interesting to see how he gets there. The attention to detail on the vehicles and the weapons, I think, is phenomenal.
Yeah, and Mike talked about that in episode 200 as well. He shows us a couple of his props as well, which was kind of interesting. Do you remember that, Steve?
His prop? Oh, yeah. I'm thinking the cars. I didn't see any model cars. No, it wasn't a car.
Well, okay.
You'll have
to hang in and watch episode 200 to that one.
Yeah.
Anything else you just want to talk about on this one?
Have you guys been following it as it's been going, like day by day?
Yeah. Or every second or third day I've been following it. That's a very good panel as well.
Oh, I love that that front on image of the Phantom there. That's a great picture.
Yeah.
On the 10th of
hint of the skull ring up there. And
and just like the atmosphere with the fog and the different size panels, and he's just he's done a very good job.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, looking forward to reading more as that one progresses. I feel like we'll be talking about the Rack and Ruin of Gravelines for a few comics and newses to come as the story unfolds. We've mentioned it a few times there. Don't miss episode 200. I know it's probably a month or so away. As you listen to this, if you've jumping on it as soon as it lands in your subscription inbox. But episode 200 is a special one with all three King Features creators, Tony DePaul as writer, Mike Manley and Jeff Weigel as the two artists, joining us and our Patreons for a question and answer session that just kept on going. And I hope I'm looking forward to hearing that, because when I say us, I wasn't there, unfortunately, but looking forward to hearing that myself. Always, if you, whether you agree or disagree with what we say, feel free to let us know. What we have been finding is it's mostly people who disagree. People who agree with us tend not to write in. But I guess that's 2021. Anyway, if you want to let us know why we're wrong about what we're saying, then make sure you get in touch with us via the social media channels. On Facebook, we're at chroniclechamber.com, or we also coordinate the Phantom Collector group. We're on Twitter at chronicle_tweet, on Instagram at Chronicle Chamber, and of course YouTube. Just search for Chronicle Chamber and you will find us there. Anyway, news, Phantom news over the last couple of months, and it was teased earlier this week. It's gone straight to the top of the run sheet, and we've actually already mentioned it in the pod, and that's the news from Frew about the Phantom Generations poster that is available for sale. And I wouldn't be surprised if German is working on getting that up in front of us as we speak on the YouTube. It was actually teased a little bit early, probably 4 or 5 days. We saw a couple of individuals on Facebook post that they had at least digital copies of the image. It does show the 21 Phantoms, and the link to it, Germ's actually just showing us there, is the one that the image is on our website, chroniclechamber.com. 22 Phantoms, so the 17 generations, the 21 generations of the Phantom, and the 22 Phantoms that have held that mantle,
including Julie Walker. Correct.
Yep. Correct. All right. So we've talked about it briefly already. Steve, you said you didn't buy the poster. Why is that?
One, I wasn't on Facebook or whatever quick enough to get it. I had other things to spend my money on. Like I said, yes, I think it's done really, really well. I really like the art, but having the Phantom in different costumes is not something that sits well with me right now. I might still buy it when they print off more copies. Like if I was at Supernova and I saw that, I'd buy it straight away.
Yes, good. Yeah.
But seeing as I've got to order it online, well, there's that extra degree of difference and distance, and I don't need to buy it right now. It's not the top of my priorities.
Did you get a copy?
I missed out as well because I was busy organising some other people from WA who wanted a copy. We have confirmed with Glenn Ford, even though it says that it was sold out at the time of recording, that there is more than there, so they just need to update the website, which you made mention before as well. So if you haven't brought it yet, don't freak out. They are going to get more. Just keep checking the website. If you've got some friends, buy them together, because I think on their website they say that you can have 8 before the shipping changes. So
yeah,
so it means it'll be $25 and $27 including shipping, which is a lot better than saying $35. So
yeah.
I'll probably get it, but I still owe people for a few other things yet, so I better pay them.
Well, I think I wouldn't be surprised if it's been so popular, and it will continue to be popular enough that it will continue to be printed. Now, I guess that as you've just scrolled there past the rest of the story, Jim, you must have taken a bit of Tony DePaul's words and even Jeff Weigel, what he put in his Facebook post explaining the origin of the story of the poster.
Yes. So on that link that I just showed, the link will be on all of our show notes. The story behind the poster, behind the image, with what we've talked about in Jeff Weigel's own words as well. So have a look at that, have a read of it.
I really enjoyed the idea that there was actually a commission from a fan, someone who'd seen the costume, the Chamber of Costumes, and then gone, gee, what about an extension of that? and has actually sent that idea into Jeff, and that's become so popular that now all of a sudden, we're seeing it all over the Phantom side of the internet. And it's a poster that's so popular on Frew that it sells out within about 12 hours.
And good on Frew for getting that out there. People, having a lot of good news over these past 18 months. And Frew at the moment, the Sydney lockdown has been absolutely devastating for people up in Sydney. And they're not getting many people, they already run on, very skeleton staff. And so that's been decimated already with lockdowns. So the fact that they're still getting out a comic every, 2 weeks or whatever, plus now they've got this poster coming out, well done. Yes, we've got some delays, like my local comic shop didn't have issue 1901, and like I said before, they still don't have the Kid Phantom there. But other places have got them. So well done, Frew, for still getting out a product every couple of weeks. If we've got to wait a day or two extra, then we've got to wait a day or two extra. It's not like Frew alone in that. I'm waiting for other stuff from Sydney as well. It's taken 2 weeks over from when I expected it to arrive. So hang tight. If you're getting something from Sydney, you just got to be a bit more patient.
Some of the staff have actually are not allowed to actually travel to the office, so they're actually bringing in temporary staff to help do all the shipments and all that. I haven't gotten my past 3 issues yet from Frew, so I'm just buying them from the newsagent. So
to write something nice into Frew, I'd absolutely recommend that, because they're doing some really good work for us at the moment. I know we get accused sometimes of being the Frew Cheer Squad, and probably I'm the leader of that, to be honest. But I really like the work that they do, and I think most of our listeners will as well. And it doesn't hurt to, in times like these, to actually send a kind word into Frew at frewpublications.com.au if you want to send them an email. Dudley won't want to publish everything in his letters to the editor, but it wouldn't hurt for him to have some nice things in there, and appreciative stuff for what they are able to continue to do for us. All right, so other publishers around the world. Let's go to news from India. We had a story on the website that discussed the situation between Regal Publishers and Shakti Publishers over in India at the moment, and a bit of confusion as to who owns the license, and does the license, owning the license, actually mean anything, all that sort of stuff. So a bit of confusion there. Ankit is our man on the ground in India, if you like, and we've asked him, reached out to him to try and explain the situation for us.
Thank you, guys. I'm Ankit, and I will be bringing you some news from India regarding the Phantom. So, as we have, if you followed the news, what's happening, we've got another new publisher, which is Shakti Comics, who are new and have the Phantom license. So there was speculation how the things are going to work, because Regal Comics has already been printing the Phantom for like about a year now, and Shakti coming in, so we were all speculating like how the differences in stories or what the whole publishing schedule will be. But Shakti announced that the first story they're going to print is The Curse of Old Man Moss, and it's a modern daily story, and as we all know, even Regal has been doing modern daily stories, so it's still, the speculation is pretty much still on like how the stories and everything are going to be separated. Secondly, they have also announced the more details that they are planning to get it out in September. They had first said the first week or the last week of August, but that didn't happen, and it's still like on for September as so far as I know. And so like we are in the middle of September already, so I'm guessing sometime maybe late September or something. And some other details is it's going to be having that one story, and it's going to be 72 pages, so which is very interesting, because as we all know, the daily story is not that long if you put it in 4-strip panels, but what they are doing is they're editing the whole daily strip, and they are making some panels larger and some smaller, and things we can only see how it is designed and everything once we actually get the book in hand. So yeah, so it's going to be about 72 pages, and it's going to cost 200 rupees, which is the same price as a Regal issue, which is again interesting, because Regal prints about 2 stories in glossy paper for the same price. But yeah, we have to wait and see what's up with this. And another detail that was released was that the cover art was being done by Indian comics legendary artist, Anupam Sinha, and he's a synonymous name for all those who followed like Indian comics, especially Raj comics with Nagaraj, Super Commando Dhruv, and those. So yeah, it's a big catch for them, because pretty much everybody who's been reading Hindi comics definitely know who Anupam Sinha is. And so yeah, him doing the first ever issue of Shakti Comics Phantom is a big catch. Over on to Regal Comics, I am sure they are also like somewhere like 2 months are down, and their plan was 3 books every 2 months. So since it's September, I'm guessing sometime in the middle of September or end of September they're going to start pre-orders for the next 3, so which will be issues I think 16, 17 and 18. And the thing is, one of them is probably going to be a tribute to Claes Rimerthi, and which is a big thing, because Mr. Rimerthi's passing in the recently was a very, very sad event, and all the fans have been kind of like waiting to see what the big publishers all over the world like Egmont, Frew, and Regal, and everybody who's ever publishes the Phantom do for to kind of pay tribute to this man. And yeah, so that's one of the things, and I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, that's about the news from India, and we are really eagerly waiting to see what happens, because very soon this month and the next month might begin with like we might have 4 issues of the Phantom, 1 from Shakti, 3 from Regal coming in. So it's a great time to be a Phantom fan. So yeah, thank you guys. Over back to you.
All right. So, Jerm, you've spoken to Ankit quite a bit, and that's some great insight that he's just provided us. What's your take on the situation over there?
Confusion.
That seems common.
Yeah, confusion. Look, I don't really know. It's going to be interesting just to watch this space to see what kind of happens. The situation's different to say what happened with Dynamite and Last Phantom. It's different, but it's not different in a certain way. Look, I'm unsure how the 2 publishers are going to be able to print stories from the same era at the same time in the same language plus other languages. I don't know if it's sustainable, so that's probably my concern. And if it's not sustainable, my other concern is how will we see one still publish the Phantom, or will they just both throw in the towel and then we go back 10 years or back a couple of years when we see nothing being published in India? That's probably my concern, is that it has the potential of us going backwards and not seeing the Phantom published in India, because we need the Indians to buy Phantom comics, because it's a huge market and it could be a key to unlocking the Phantom's popularity again.
So, forgive my ignorance, are Regal and Shakti based in the same city, or are they geographically close to each other? Because distribution is probably going to be really important here. If, for instance, and you may be able to answer the question as to where they are, but if Regal is in southern India and Shakti is in northern India and their paths don't cross, then perhaps this is entirely achievable.
Maybe,
like you said, market. Yeah. It's 1 billion people. The Frew survives in Australia by the skin of their teeth sometimes, but we've got a market of 25 million, a small fraction of which are buying Phantom comics. You get that same small fraction buying from 1 billion population. That's a lot of sales. So there is the potential there for them to share it, as long as they're probably not side by side in the same news agency or whatever the case may be.
To be positive, and I like how you're bringing a positive spin on it, because we can all be negative, and I think we've probably portrayed a bit of a negative side at times. So I like your positivity. I hope you're right, and I hope that they can both flourish and grow and produce a good comic side by side. I'm looking forward to seeing the first comic from Shakti. I see on Facebook that they've just announced that they're hiring new staff as well. So that will be interesting to see how that goes and whether that means they're going to be producing more comics and stuff like that as well. So I guess let's just wait and see.
Regals have been available on the Frew website. Do you expect that Shakti will as well?
It's a good question. If the product is good, I would say yes. Because if you look at the Regal comics, and I've got all of them, and I'm not sure if you've picked up any of them yet, but you can see our reviews that Ankit has been doing on the website as well. It's a great product.
It's a good quality product, yeah.
Some could argue that it's even better than a Frew comic.
Oh, I think in terms of the paper quality and the print quality, it probably is a better quality product in that regard. At least Frew are doing news stories and their own stuff as well, and it's a mix and not just newspaper stuff. So, but as a quality story to read, if you're just reading that story, you probably would go for a Regal over the same story published in a Frew.
We will produce and publish reviews of the comics when they come out.
All right. Something I know that I'm so very excited about is the Phantom card game. It was since last time we spoke, the Mikael Lyck from Lyck by Games by Lyck, has announced that he's worked on and has developed and is about to throw onto Kickstarter the expansion pack for the Phantom card game. Now, we could try and summarise and tell you all about it, but we do have access to the man who knows exactly what's going on. So let's hear a little bit from Mikael about the expansion pack for the Phantom card game.
Hello, Mikael here with a special announcement today. Last year, I created and kickstarted the Phantom the card game, and now the expansion is also ready for Kickstarter. It is called Terrain Maviton, and it's based on the Sunday story with the same name, written by Tony DePaul and art by Graham Nolan. The expansion features the adventure, reward cards, new keywords, and more. I hope you will join me in this journey with a new Kickstarter that starts on 5th of October. And if this sounds interesting, please click the link in the description below to follow the campaign page. See you there. Happy Phantoming.
Guys, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about the prospect of this. Where are you guys at with it?
I think everyone's excited. I like how he's waited for the Australians to get the regular Australian backers to get their game, and then it's kind of like a month window, and then we're going to have the Kickstarter campaign to start. So I'm not sure whether that was done by design or a happy coincidence. I think it's good. Mikael has told us also that the shipping problem for the Australian backers and to a lesser extent the American backers has been solved as well. He's come up with a better solution, so that shouldn't happen again, which is good. It's good to see that that he's identified a problem and then fixed it. But yeah, I like the cover art by Henrik Sellström. I love the story. It's one of my favourite modern day stories. So yeah, let's look forward to it. I've always liked following Kickstarter campaigns. They're fun.
I've always liked it ever since the Phantom one started coming on board. So yeah, no, I'll be certainly getting jumping on board and pledging and buying and all the rest of it, because lucky enough to have had my Phantom card game for quite a while, and really looking forward to being able to see some of the more really high quality product that he produces too. I think that when the only complaints, certainly that I've seen, that have been come out about the Phantom card game is how long it's taken to arrive. Well, that's not Mikael's fault, and as you say, he's fixed it for the next one by getting a better distributor. I think everyone should be looking forward to this and the quality of the product that is coming out. Watch this space. Hopefully, by the next time we have a Comics and News, we'll be talking about how the Kickstarter is going.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I can't wait for it to come out and to back it. And the other day when I was in my local comic shop, I saw the card game, the original one, there on the shelves, and and I gave it a tap and had a chat to the lady there. So it's great to see it in the shops now.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, just a quick one, I suppose, because it's sort of adjacent to the Phantom universe, but Hermes Press is printing Mandrake newspaper stories now. We would expect the same high-quality product for Mandrake as what they've been producing for Phantom. I personally won't be, I'm not made of money and I'm not getting the many of the Hermes Press Phantom volumes. I'd love to, but I certainly won't be able to squeeze Mandrake into the budget. Either of you guys keen on Mandrake stories to the point where you'll buy Hermes Press versions?
Probably not.
Well, like you, I don't have the Phantom version, so
it's just good to see that they've got the King Features license and they're expanding into the universe. I wish them well. I hope that it goes really, really well. I can't see it as being as big a seller as the Phantom, though.
But yeah, no, it's great to see. And yeah, if I was collecting the Phantom ones and I had a spare, however much it is, I'd get that one too. But
yeah,
it's not on mine.
If we had no kids.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
So if we had no kids, I wouldn't be doing the podcast in my car. I'd have a spare room to do it in.
All right. Now you've got the share screen enabled, James. So I'll get you to click on that link for new Comic Kingdom products and show everybody what we're talking about as we look at how the new style guide has transformed or come out in the way of clothing items that you can get. Comic Kingdom website is there on your screen now. And there's a whole bunch of shirts, phone cases. We even see a new mug as well. So I really like some of this gear, guys. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I hadn't seen it until just before the podcast as I was going through the run sheet. And I clicked on it and I was happy too. And particularly, can you go up to the second T-shirt there, Jam?
So that seems pretty basic, Steve.
It does. Until you have a look at the back. Now, if you click on one of the things so you can get the back on it, zoom up on that. There we go. Check that out.
The Phantom Oath cotton tee. Well done.
So that is at the top of my to get list now. That is just shot up there with a bullet.
That is actually pretty cool.
So
what you're saying is that people should copy the link from our show notes and email it to their families and say, look, it's only 3 months till Christmas.
Absolutely. Now, one little thing, it's got prices up there. Are those Australian prices or are
they're US?
They're US. So
yeah,
look out for that one.
Not cheap. $30 American dollars for a T-shirt. That's going to be 50 odd plus postage. It's not a cheap T-shirt by the time you get it out to Australia.
So you got to get yourself a mug. You get yourself a phone case. Now, can a phone case be classified as a tax deduction?
Well, maybe, but I did have a look at that. That phone case is only for, I think it's the iPhone 13. It's very specific. iPhone 12 Pro. If you click on options, I don't think there was other options.
Oh yeah, 12 Pro. Oh man, I just brought myself a 12 Mini. I should have got a 12 Pro instead.
Yeah. So unfortunately, you can. And it seems a bit silly that they've only got that made for such a specific brand of phone. So I can't imagine that. It's a smaller market by the time you go iPhone 12 Pro owners who also have enough money to spend. Well, if you've got that, you probably do have the money to spend on a.
I just had to double check. I've got 11 Pro.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, no good for you either. But the T-shirt and the mug, I like the look of that mug too. Yeah. I am a bit of a sucker for a good Phantom mug.
And it was just last year that they released a mug. Is that right? I remember. It wasn't that long ago.
Did Comics Kingdom have a mug?
Oh, it probably wasn't Comics Kingdom. The last time there was a mug.
They've had some mugs, but the other mug is the heat changing one with Icon.
That's Icon. Yeah. Which does use that skull. So, yeah. So again, though, $20 American dollars by the time, or $15 American dollars by the time you get it over here.
Yeah. Now the website usually does have specials and little coupon codes and stuff like that for like 10% or 15% off and all that. So keep an eye out for those. I believe there is a newsletter link that you can subscribe to, and they will actually email you when they have those sales. When we get them, we usually try and put them up on our socials as well. So it might be worth trying to save and wait for one of those sales.
So obviously we talk a lot about licensing and that sort of thing. You can't get more licensed than the products that are coming actually out of King Features themselves. So it probably, as far as collecting goes, probably isn't going to be lots of people spending the money on something like that. So if you're after something unique but certainly hugely licensed, maybe that's for you.
And there's plenty of different colours with the T-shirts too.
Yeah, that's true.
It came in a variety of colours.
Yeah. And some of that artwork is not for everybody. The big one that had the full Phantom across the entire front of the shirt, that's not necessarily artwork that I particularly like. But anyways, a little something for everybody there. Now, a new regular series of the Phantom being published in the world. Now, Editions Dante, was that French, Germ?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a new French publisher who's coming out with a regular series, including digital stories, so digital subscriptions available.
Yeah, so you can buy the comic digitally.
Now, it's an interesting one because it's brand new from France, but they're using some very familiar artwork and indeed stories.
Yeah, I don't know. They must be cheap to buy from King Features because, I don't know why you would choose those stories, to be truthfully honest.
Yeah, like it's a great cover, we've seen that picture many, many times before. So, yeah, I guess people in France absolutely will be looking forward to this. I know we do have a few fans in France, and hopefully they duck out and grab their Phantom magazine as it appears on their shelves. As an international collector, Germ, I imagine you'll be looking to pick up a copy or two of this as it comes out.
Yeah, I probably will. I've kind of stopped buying comics from around the world at the moment. I'm in the middle of trying to reorganize this room and come up with a solution to be able to store more comics because I've just got piles and piles of comics. Like I see 6 piles of comics a meter high in front of me at the moment. So when I kind of sort that out, I'll probably will start buying a few more of these comics from around the world. Just one quick thing is that the little title image is the Chris Wall door poster that came from Frew.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you think they've got, have they paid Frew a commission to be able to use that in the top corner?
I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't have highlighted that so they don't get into trouble.
Well, look, Glenn, Renee, Dudley, if you're looking for an extra little revenue stream, just make sure that little company in France is slinging a few francs your way. Well, that's old school, isn't it? Euros now. All right. Now, staying in Europe, we've had a whole podcast devoted to it. We've talked about a Close from Matthew story today, and in one of those comics, we had the obituary that appeared on Chronicle Chambers' website, was also published in Frew magazines. That our little tribute to Klaus. And obviously his funeral has been held since the last time, or since we recorded that podcast and we announced the news. We've been very, very fortunate that Alf Grunberg, who spoke at the funeral, has been generous enough to send us a copy of what he said. So that'll be appearing on our website soon, Germ.
Yeah, it will be. So it's a beautiful little some words that he shared. So that will be on our website as well as the photos from the funeral as well.
Yeah, and I was particularly taken, as I'm sure everybody was, with the yellow wreath, the good mark that the Phantom fans and Klaus's friends in Sweden had commissioned for the funeral, had created for the funeral.
Yeah, from memory, I'm just going through the emails with Alf. From memory, it was Hans Lindell, Lynette Moberg, and Alf that put that wreath together. Right.
It's a very, very fitting tribute to someone who has done so much good work for the Phantom. And yes, sad again that Klaus has left us, but some really beautiful words to have come out of it. Fantomette Christmas album coming out from Norway nearly a year ago, that the news first came out that these Christmas albums were going to be released, and we see that it's coming out in time for Christmas of 2021. So Germ, as our resident international expert here in Australia, tell us about this Christmas album from Norway.
So again, if you're on YouTube, you can see the image. It's interesting that they've gone the landscape format in the, I'd like to say late 80s, early 90s, released their Christmas albums in the old, I guess, landscape type of comic. From looking at the cover here, it looks like it's going to be another version of that. There's going to be two stories. There's going to be the Spy Ship, which is the Jeff Weigel and the Tony DePaul story, which features the Phantom visiting Australia, the Sunday story. And then the other one is going to be the drummer of Tapini, which you can tell that is the cover image here. I will assume that they are going to be using the colour version, which was coloured by Ivan Pedersen for the Frew comic, which featured the sequels to this original story. And then the cost is going to be 89
Kronos or something like that.
Yeah, it could be that. 15 Australian, 10 US, €9, and 90 Swedish kronos. So it should be, I think it's Norwegian kronos. It's look, it's good to see Egmont producing another Phantom comic, which isn't just the reprint series that they've been doing. They have been continually reprinting that, but I think Norway deserves more than just the Phantom chronologisk albums, which is basically the chronological albums, which is similar as what we get with our replica series, and Sweden does a version of that as well. It's good to see that they're doing more than just that. Hopefully the album sells quite well. Must make mention that if you are not wanting to purchase it from the website, but you want to purchase it from someone who can handle shipping overseas and everything like that, your best bet would be Ivan Pedersen. He will be having a bunch of these, and you can buy them directly from him, and he will sort out postage and everything like that as well.
So if you search for IP Comics on Facebook, you'll be able to find that shop that he runs for those purposes.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jason Paulos, people know him as we've already talked about him as the artist for the Phantom by Gaslight series, the Grey Malkin series, a bunch of other main series comic books for Frew. He's become quite an accomplished Phantom artist. He's also a quite accomplished guitar player and song recorder, and he's actually recorded a Phantom song. Now, we're going to play this at the end of the podcast tonight. But there's some pretty exciting news that Jason has announced regarding a contest to do with this song, Jim. You've been talking to Jason. Can you fill us in on what he's after here?
So basically, he's after a music video. We all grew up on music videos. Stephen, you're our resident musician. I'm sure you've listened to and watched quite a lot of music videos as well. So he's created the music. Now we need some pictures and video to go with the music. Again, it's on our website. There's no end date, so to speak. We are having Jason on our podcast in the near future. We will let people know when the end date is due, but obviously this might take a little bit of time, so we're not going to end it in the next week or two. So there's plenty of time for people to fire up their programs on their computers and to create a music video. I'm going to have a go at it. I believe, Stephen, you're going to have a go at it as well.
Oh, yeah, I'll have a crack at it.
So at least there'll be 2 entries, maybe not very good ones, but again...
Well, that will leave me as the impartial judge, and as an impartial judge, I can assure you that a third person will be winning it.
Yes, we won't be winning it. We're just basically having some fun. So create a music video, stick it up on YouTube, tag us in it, or if you don't know how to do that, send it to us and we'll stick it up on our YouTube for you. Jason and us will be choosing the winner, and it's good to have some fun and to be able to get the Phantom out there.
Very good. All right, well, stay tuned for not ridiculously long from now when we play that outro song. Last piece of news we want to touch on is Phantom creator Julie Dietrich, who has only had the one Phantom story actually published so far, but has a bunch more in the works for Frew. Has been featured in the latest Inkspot magazine, which is a magazine that comes out here in Australia talking about creative types and people who are involved in the publishing industry here in Australia. And Julie is featured in the latest magazine. I haven't actually seen a copy of the magazine, so I certainly haven't read it yet, but I understand she discusses her latest stories in the Golden Circle sequel.
Yes.
Jerm, that'll be probably you who've seen it.
I've seen a picture of it. I've seen her talk about it. At the date of recording, I haven't put an article up on the website. By the time this gets published, there will be an article on the website which will have some more information. So check out our website.
Very good. All right. You can also, when you're checking out our website, you'll be able to see that based on what was it, podcast 196, when we were talking about brainstorming a Bible for the Phantom, we really did a bit of a deep dive on the various elements of the Phantom, and I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. Coming out of that has been the first of what's going to be at least 4 polls, I think, where we ask the fans what elements of Phantom lore are the most important to you. And we start with the uniform. Do we want to, I noticed that you put up today, Jerm, an update as the tally so far. We've got a bunch of voters, and it looks like we do have a surprise leader. Well, certainly a surprise to me in terms of what people regard as the most important element of the Phantom uniform.
Me and Steve were talking about this before you joined us, Dan. Is one of the questions is just the skull ring or the skull ring and the good ring. So if you add the ring/rings together, that is the most important element, and then the mask with the eyes not showing as the second most important element. And then there was a few votes for the others, but they're the 2 leaders.
Yep. So really encourage people to jump on and put in your votes for that. We'll tie that all together into a story at the end of our polling, I'm sure.
Or a podcast.
For a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that might be when we come back and brainstorm a little bit more, you reckon?
Yeah. I think we will.
Cool. All right, we certainly have had some creators who have contacted us saying how handy a Phantom Bible would be. I don't know if we're creating a mountain for our own backs here or something for our shoulders to carry, and we're suddenly going, oh, hang on, we might be well placed to create this and then have lots of other people shoot us down. But that's why we're trying to consult with the people as we go, isn't it? So that's why we try and do these sorts of polls and include contributions from the listeners, from the watchers of this, to let us know, because while we probably spend a little bit more time thinking Phantom than some people, we certainly aren't considering ourselves experts by any means or the definitive word on anything. We want to be of the fans, for the fans, by the fans, etc., that whatever our slogan is. So certainly feel free to contribute and let us know what is important to you.
I've really enjoyed putting the list together and all that sort of stuff. Or what element would that, or what category would that fall under, and all that sort of thing. I've really enjoyed it. So I hope everyone has a go at clicking and being a part of the poll and get your thoughts out there. And we specifically said you get 1 choice per element. So you got to think really hard. So
yes,
there's no top 3 here. It's 1 in, and that's the horse you back, and you stick with it.
Very good. It did make for some interesting thinking as you go, those are my options. What am I going to choose? So, All right. Well, you can certainly find that on our website, chroniclechamber.com. Email us, as I say, with anything you'd like to talk about Phantom. And I would say that we've been getting a bit more in the Old Monkey mailbag over the last few months. People do seem to be typing chroniclechamber@gmail.com into the address bar of their particular email software and firing off messages to us, or hitting us up via the links on the website as well in the message box there.
It's always great to hear from people, whether they agree with us or whether they don't.
Yeah.
So
might be a segment in future, certainly not long comics and news segments like this, podcasts like this, but a segment for the future, maybe our monkey mailbag, where we dip in and read a few of the emails and have a bit of a chat about the topics that they contain.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're about to wrap up, so make sure, of course, that you subscribe to Chronicle Chamber and the Expand Phantom podcast on iTunes or Spotify, however you listen to us, whatever app that might be, or certainly watch us on YouTube as well. Jen puts a lot of work into making sure that the visuals are there to complement the things that we're talking about. So if you've got the time to sit back and watch us, then certainly recommend that. Otherwise, hope you continue enjoying listening to this on your drive to work or whatever else that might be. All right. Well, that's it. That's it from us. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you got something out of it. Until next time from me, it is happy Phantoming.
Happy Phantoming.
Happy Phantoming.
And over to Jason.